cop gets accused of groping a college student. He has to resign. Enough evidence is there to support the accusation. He leaves. Then he gets a job as a cop again in charge of investigating sexual assault. Put up his picture full mass. Okay, this is insane. A cop who resigned after groping a college student landed a new job investigating sexual assault. I'm going to give you the background to this insanity. It needs to be exposed. In 2010, David Laudon, a campus police officer at the University of Massachusetts, this is Dartmouth, resigned in the midst of an investigation into sexual harassment allegations against him. He was then rehired as a school resource officer at the Blackstone-Millville Regional School District in the nearby town of Blackstone, Massachusetts. In that new job, he was given the task to investigate sexual assault crimes and working with students in the public school system who have been sexually victimized. Let me give you background to the original incident. According to the campus police report, at that time, Officer Laudon had given a 20-year-old college student a ride back to her residential hall in his cruiser. The student said he gave her a hug and groped her breast, and then proceeded to constantly harass her with frequent unwanted texts and calls. The cop resigned during the investigation into his behavior. How his current employer responded to the allegations. Blackstone Town Administrator Dori Vecchio told WBUR she did not know about the allegations against the officer while he was at University of Massachusetts until the outlet contacted her. After WBUR provided further evidence of the cop's misconduct in his previous job, he was removed as school resource officer, but has stayed on the town police force. The police department's website continues to list him as an investigator who handles sexual assault reports. Now, I'm still on this issue with Officer Laudon. Let me put that on the shelf just for a minute and respond to the university. The university, they're claiming they did not know about his background. Okay, that doesn't get you off the hook. Did you ask? Did you inquire? Did you check the references? Did you contact the former employer? No. You see, if the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act would have been law today, guess what? There would have already existed a registry for this cop. He would have been known to anybody, including myself and you, that this was an issue in his background. Why is that so hard for people to support? Some people are adverse to that. Wait a minute, cops know your background, you can't know theirs. That doesn't make sense. We pay them, they don't pay us. But the university decided to allow this individual to work there without doing their due diligence. And for that, you all are at fault, not asking the right questions or providing a proper vetting process in order to protect your student body. How his past history of misconduct was not known. WBUR, the local agency that reported, did a great job, traced more than a dozen current Massachusetts police officers who had been fired or resigned from another police department after or during misconduct investigations, only to find work at another department. Other examples included officers who had been accused of domestic violence, arrested for drunk driving incidents, or found impersonating someone on social media and making vulgar posts. This is why it's really important that cops are held accountable all the way. Remember, I've talked about how officers get away with crimes or malfeasance because they are allowed to resign. The police chief, they don't have to accept the resignation. The sheriff, they don't have to accept the resignation. They can fire them. And they can also provide their name, to post certification, to say this person is bad news, a red flag. Do not hire him. But many times, regardless of how egregious the activity is from the cop, they are allowed to resign. Why? Because they can move on to the city next door and become a cop without any issue. A Massachusetts law also requires police to keep private all reports and arrests for sexual and domestic violence, including those that are committed by police officers. Only cops themselves are able to access this information, which means those who have perpetrated abuse are unlikely to be publicly outed and barred from rejoining a different police department. Is that not insane? Cops should be the ones exposed primarily, period. If there needs to be exposure, if a cop does something like this, it has to be part of the record. Why? Because that's a good public safety policy. That's why. There's more. Police spotty track record with sex crimes, sexual assault, and intimate partner violence. Reports are routinely mishandled by police officers who are known to misidentify the primary aggressor in abusive relationships, erroneously not believe that marital rape is real, and flag rapes that didn't involve a weapon or were between individuals who used to be in a relationship as false reports. Studies from the 1990s found that at least 40% of police officers self-identified as domestic abusers. This is a problem that permeates beyond that locality. Ben, thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, and like really, so it seems that there's a little bit of a presumption of innocence for police officers, which is funny because police officers, believe it or not, are among one of the most criminal demographics in the United States of America. As you pointed out with the domestic abuse statistics, police officers, I think somewhere around 5 times as likely as any random person to be a domestic abuser. And then you look at data from different police departments across the country, and you find that sexual harassment and sexual assault by police officers to people that they are either detaining or that like called them for help or something or stuck on the side of the road, you name it, people get victimized by police officers themselves all the time. I actually, like, if I'm remembering this data point correctly, something like once every 10 days on average, there's another reported incident of like sexual assault by a police officer in New Orleans. Like people make a complaint, but we don't see the charges. We don't see charges for all of these things. We just see complaints, and then those complaints go into a black box, and then they get shredded, and then they get erased. And then you have police departments like the New York Police Department, I believe, like New York City, that actually has a timeline on like, well, after 3 years, you have to delete it, you have to shred the disciplinary records. When these are things that we should keep for an eternity. And fundamentally, like just aside from like the entire restructuring that our system of justice needs, at a bare minimum, when it comes to disciplinary records for police officers, if anybody should be in charge of it, it should be the public defender's office, because those are the people that need to have that information, because the police officers are the ones, right, that are accusing other people of being criminals, right? And they're the ones sending people to jail. And if we have a right to innocent before, innocent until proven guilty, then fundamentally the trustworthiness of the police officers has to be available information to the public defenders in order to properly defend people, to truly defend the public. Because unlike police officers, that is what public defenders do.
Very well said. There's a book called Gideon's Promise. I recommend everybody get that book if you're interested in criminal justice reform. And it talks about how public defenders are left out of the conversation of criminal justice reform. And they are probably the most pivotal, if resourced properly, to defend individuals vigorously from out of control cops and prosecutors.